Now, when parents send their child off to school, they do so safe in the knowledge that the school will act in loco parentis, will protect and care for that child as a parent would and should. But in America, that contract does seem to have broken down to some degree again this week. Parents packed off their children to school only to hear reports of gunshots in the classroom. Imagine the pain of the phone call telling someone that their son or daughter was amongst the dead. 19 kids shot dead in Robb Elementary School in Texas, the latest setting for a crime which we describe as one of unimaginable evil, were it not for the fact that it's all too imaginable because it's happened in the US so many times before. Well, Joe Biden told Americans it was time to stand up to his country's gun lobby and turn pain into action. And anyone listening to phone-in programmes on British radio stations today would have heard many voices raised in agreement. But while it makes sense to express our entirely justifiable disgust at events 5,000 miles away, it's strange when you hear some people shouting at a radio host as if we in Britain can do anything about it. We are not voters in American elections, and our laws are not their laws. Their laws do seem bizarre. I'm not wholly unsympathetic to the Second Amendment. Unlike many of my fellow Britons, I can understand why an American would want to uphold the right to a handgun or a shotgun for self-defence or pest control, but I can't see any justification for laws in certain states that allow an 18-year-old to buy an assault rifle capable of discharging dozens of bullets in a matter of seconds. So mad some of America's rules may be, but they are not our rules. And while expressing fury at a young man nihilistically snuffing out so many lives is understandable, it changes nothing in America, actually. Well, I'm joined by the American author and Daily Wire podcast host, Andrew Klavan. Andrew, welcome to you. Another one of those terrible days in recent American history. You're in America. You are able to change laws there. We can't. Would you change anything?
I actually would not change anything about the gun laws. There are laws for security I would change. You have to explain this. I mean, I lived in England a long time, and I know that you have to explain the Second Amendment to people who don't live here. It's not incidental to our way of life. It is central to our way of life, not because we're cowboys, not because we're crazy people, but because we're a federation of states. We're the United States of America, and that system is meant to protect the liberty of the individual by bringing the government closer to him. You have to understand, Great Britain is the size of Minnesota in terms of land mass, in terms of population. It's the size of maybe 2 Californias. We're a huge country, and the people in Washington, D.C. don't know how the people in Arkansas live, and the people in California don't understand the way the people in Texas live. When the founders decreed that there should be a federal government, a federal army, a national armed forces, the United States Army, the states reasonably asked, well, what's to keep that army from conquering the states? And the answer was, well, we will let the people have guns so that you can form a militia to defend the individual states against the federal government. So that has nothing to do with flintlocks. It has nothing to do with the kinds of guns. It has to do with the rights of Americans to maintain their federation of states, the same as the Electoral College.
But Andrew, but the types of guns matter. And I don't want to make this a sort of hideously technical thing. And I made clear in my introduction there, I'm not some sort of Guardian reading anti-gun activist. I get the inherent logic of the Second Amendment. And I get that you might want a pistol for self-defence or a shotgun for pest control. I've shot shotguns for many years myself. I'm not unsympathetic to the idea. But an 18-year-old kid walking into a supermarket and pulling a semi-automatic off a shelf, that's different.
Yeah, I'm not sure you understand. The gun rights are not for pest control, and they're not for self-defense. They're for being able to form militias to fight the government if the government becomes tyrannical. As we see, the left hates everything that strengthens state rights, and that's what gun rights do. They hate gun rights because they strengthen state rights. They hate the Electoral College because they strengthen state rights. But state rights are a central defense of our form of liberty, which is bottom up, not top down. In your country, the sovereign is the queen. In our country, you're looking at the sovereign. The sovereign is the people, and it is the person, the individual. And so these gun rights are not there for the usual use of guns. They are there for the emergency situation in which the government becomes tyrannical. There are more guns owned in this country than there are people, and there's really no way to take them away. And you saw when, for instance, the Australians gave up their guns. When COVID came, they were locked into their homes like prisoners, like they did in China. That doesn't happen here for some degree because the government is afraid of us, as well they should be. So the answer here has got to be greater defense in schools. It's got to be greater, allowing people to patrol with arms. It's got to be good guys with guns facing down the bad guys with guns. It's the only system that's going to work here because of our unique system of government and the fact that gun rights are central to defending it. These stories are so heartbreaking and so emotional and so terrible. But you have to remember this. For the last 25 years, our crime rate has been exceptionally low. For a while, the murder rate in London was greater than the murder rate in New York. And during that period, there were no stronger gun restrictions than there are right now. These mass shootings are so dramatic and tragic and horrifying that they make you forget that for 25 years, this was a low crime country. It's only now that the left is in charge and becoming lenient with criminals that the crime rate has started to skyrocket once again. So it's not gun rights that cause crimes. It's actually intelligent, defending rights.
Andrew, we've got to leave it there, but it's important to give your side of the argument some airtime in a day when I suspect elsewhere it's probably not getting much. And it's a fascinating perspective you bring to us, an uncomfortable one as well. Andrew Klavan, appreciate it. Sarah Elliott's alongside me. I know there'll be viewers screaming at the telly saying, that guy's seriously saying the answer to 19 dead kids is to give a revolver to a teacher. Mm-hmm. Explain it.
I mean, it's not an ideal scenario. I don't like that scenario. But the culture and in which we live is pretty caustic. And just as Andrew said, we have more guns than we have citizens. So the genie's out of the bottle. You're not going to get all those guns back. And if you do, if the government does a gun buyback program, the criminals are the ones with the guns, and then the citizens, law-abiding citizens, have no way to defend themselves. But his argument's extremely important because this is what makes us different from Australia, from Canada, from the rest of the Commonwealth. We are United States. We have state laws. We also have very strict gun laws throughout the country. People think it's the Wild West everywhere you go, and it's not true. Our strictest gun laws are in our inner cities where we have the most shootings. And by the way, most of the shootings in America are done by handgun. Only 2 to 3% are AR-15, and they're not any more lethal than a handgun at short range.
Okay,
and so we have to look at the facts here. But one thing I do want to say on this topic is that every mass shooter of the last 25 years had a mental health problem.
I get that. I'm just not sure. On the automatic weapons thing, I'm not sure it's. This is grotesque, even talking about this. But it's not easy. It's harder for somebody to walk through a series of classrooms and gun down 19 kids with a pistol or a shotgun than it is an automatic rifle. Ergo, that's got to be true. Okay, I'm glad we got into it. Thank you.